Welcome, Damien Durandt, to the chat.
Aiden, what's happening?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks, and yourself?
Not too bad, thank you. I think the last time I saw you in person was just before, we were supposed to have Brandon Taser versus Boyd Allen.
Jeez, that's sad, eh? That's really sad because it was literally fight week where they were like, COVID-19, everything's closed. Couldn't wait 1 week for us. Not even 1 week.
Yeah, it was just like, could we have wished the fight was 1 week earlier or that they did the lockdown 1 week later? But I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. So, Jesus, it's freezing, isn't it?
Yeah, and Joburg's a bit fresh, eh?
How's was you at the Durant's jersey there? I see it. Yeah.
We have to represent, as always. Building a brand, or continuing a brand, should we say.
Continuing a brand. I'm just letting people come in. I see people at one stage, I don't know what happened with the connection. It just went in, went out. And yeah, so people need to still come in into the chat. But for the people that are here, I suppose we should just lay down a couple of ground rules as to what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, that's cool with me. What have you got in mind?
Yeah, so basically we're just gonna have a chat. So everyone that is online at the moment, and basically we're not looking at your questions, but we will answer your questions at the end if that's okay with you, Damien.
Yeah, I'm cool with that, Hayden. Actually, tonight what I was thinking is I'd turn some questions on you, and for a change, I think we ask you some questions. I think we can take a bit of turns here. You can ask me one or two things. I can ask you one or two things, and I think we take it from there. I think at the moment, there's not a lot we can talk about South African boxing at the moment, but I think there's still room for a lot of conversation, and I think a lot of people have questions to ask us, and what we have in our sport that's going on, and what's the future about.
Yeah, look, I think that's the crazy part is we don't actually know what the future holds for us just yet. I mean, we all got these beautiful intentions of what we're going to do, and everyone's sort of coming up with their own solutions, but they're not really practical solutions, are they? I mean, if we're looking at it, everyone's like, oh, we love to watch boxing, but it's just like, we still got to get into the training. There's a whole process that goes behind it. It's not just simply getting in the boxing ring. So you can't spar, you can't do anything.
100%. And I think the other thing is right now is the perfect time for people to be watching boxing at home, because people are looking for content and they want to watch fighters, and they want to watch anything at the moment because there's nothing going on. I mean, even movie releases have been delayed, and I think it's just something that I think the world's kind of in shock, and I think it's the perfect opportunity to try and bring boxing to people's attention. A lot of people have contacted me and be like, I've been watching a lot of the boxing that's been on 211 and that kind of stuff. So it would be nice if we had live boxing shown all over South Africa.
But I mean, even when we get there, it's going to be no crowds. So, I mean, we've seen it overseas in America. But obviously in America, it's summer right now, so it's not really peaking in terms of coronavirus stats. And they're kind of doing a safety first type thing. Right here, we're in a peaking season. We're in winter. It's going to be difficult with the cases rising to even think about boxing right now, right?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we know that I think Cape Town at the moment is going through a really tough time, and their cases are really out of control, and people are dying, and it's in abundance, and we're starting to really see the effects of this virus. It's one thing watching it on the news and you see these numbers, and now all of a sudden it's actually in our country.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you know what? I'm going to let you go ahead and ask me a question now, because I think that, so you said you want to turn the tables. I'm open to anything. Let's go.
Okay, so as of late, you've obviously been very busy with your lockdown show and everything. I wanted to know, out of all the people that you interviewed during this time, who gave you, should I not say the best interview, but who gave you more knowledge in the sport, or which interview did you take away the most?
Oh, okay. So which one did I take away the most? I'd say the first one, the Jack Reese one, was an eye-opener for me, sort of having him explain in detail as to why he didn't stop the fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. And it's sort of like, you might have watched interviews before, but hearing it in person is like, okay, cool. He's he's had medical experience and so forth. My favorite one, Jimmy Lennon Jr. I mean, I don't think it gets much better than that. It's showtime. It's like the coolest guy you could possibly ever talk to. And we recently did one with Martin Murray, and obviously he's had a bit of a, a dodgy background, and it's sort of how he saved his life through boxing. So that's a sort of inspirational story. So I really enjoyed the Martin Murray one.
Okay, and obviously, as you said, Martin Murray. Is there any other boxers that you intend on interviewing in the future, or is it something that you don't want to say at the moment?
Yeah, well, basically, in the pipeline was Nonito Donaire, and obviously that's an interesting one because he's fought Mauritius Solane. There's 3 South Africans he's fought, and I think it's an interesting story for us as South Africans. I think that's sort of coming back and letting him compliment us.
He's hurt South African hearts too many times, should we say? Eh?
Yeah.
We're hoping Zolani Tete would be our opportunity, but obviously the fight never happened because of injury.
Yeah, but even that fight, like I thought. Like as of right now, I know that Zolani Tete lost to Casemiro, but I thought Zolani Tete would have won that fight. But I don't know about it now. Like I'm saying at the time, just seeing what Nonito Donaire was capable of doing in the final against Inoue, back down at bantamweight again, is sensational.
So let me ask you something. A lot of people had felt that after Rigondeaux, that Donaire wasn't the same fighter anymore. He was closing in on his career. And then he gives a fight that fans went crazy for, like nearly voted Fight of the Year. I think that it is a candidate for Fight of the Year and for some. Now, is it a case of Donaire still holding out and he's still at the top of his career? Or is it a case where Inoue isn't as hot as we think he is?
No, I think that just might have been the last great performance we see of Nonito Donaire. You've got to realize his age. And I think that Nonito, when he drops weight, I mean, he's a hard fight for anyone. We know his heydays, how good he was. I think that Monster will gradually move up through the weights. He's pushing really fast at the moment, and I think that was an eye-opening fight for him to not put someone away. And it's interesting that he still got through it and had the ability to outpoint Nonito Donaire.
I understand your perspective, and you've got to also look at it like this. Donaire started his career, if I'm not mistaken, at flyweight. He fought Maruti at flyweight. He went to bantam and he shifted all the way to featherweight. He fought Jeffrey Matabula, at junior feather. I think the Rigondeaux fight happened at featherweight.
Mm. And I'm not sure. I think so.
Yeah, I think it's featherweight. And you look at a guy's career, and it's something that we don't assess in South African boxing, is that American fighters go through weight divisions. Mm. South Africans generally stick in one division, and why do you think that is?
Gee, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the fact that we want to give ourselves the biggest advantage, so we sort of fight in and around where we think maybe we don't have good weight cutting programs. I'm not sure about it, but whenever you see a South African fighter usually going abroad, we're usually a lot bigger by the time we get in the ring. We cut a lot of weight. Our guys are usually very tall, but they got a nice reach advantage over our opponents. Other guys just sort of come in around their weight divisions. But in terms of like Mauritius Solane, I mean, that's just like insane. One weight division your whole career. I mean, and being so good throughout. Let's put it that way. I think that's good.
So he's got the body structure for flyweight. He could push it to junior bantam and possibly bantam. But he stayed in one division. He's been very successful at that, and it's paid. But we look at fighters that like I'll give you, for instance, because we're talking about it, Jeffrey Matabula, he had a lot of height. He fought Donaire. There was massive size advantage in favor of Matabula. But now, why didn't a guy like that shift to junior light and lightweight and possibly even junior welter? And we see it with a lot of these American fighters. Like, we come in overseas, we've got that height advantage, we've got the reach advantage. Why don't we push our guys deeper into different divisions? Is it because, okay, well, we're successful there and we will be as successful as we can be up until the point we lose, and then a lot of the time South Africans go, oh, well, he lost, he's done. And instead of saying, you know what, he's been at this division for a long time, maybe it's just taking 10% out of this guy. Maybe we need to shift him into a different division so that he regains that 10%.
Maybe it's a mindset, though. Maybe it's a mindset saying, if I go up in weight, I know those guys will be big. I don't want to face the power. Everyone talks about world level. Do I want to face a world? Let's just say you guys are lightweight. Like it's like let's just say it's Terence Crawford, for example, who's hopped up weight divisions recently. He's gone into the hottest division in the world, and he looks, between him and Errol Spence, the two best in that division. Now, he hasn't looked like a small welterweight, has he? You know?
100%. But then you've got to also look at it like this. So you look at a fighter like Devin Haney now, who's a lightweight, and you obviously seen that Floyd's training him, and Floyd's saying the kid can go all the way up to 160 pounds. So for anyone that doesn't know, that's 72 and a half kilos. That's middleweight. Most guys in the middleweight division cut from 80 kilos down to 72 kilos. So they're saying that he'll go from lightweight and he could possibly move to middleweight. He's saying he thinks his road in terms of weight classes ends at junior middle, which is super welter, 69 kilos.
Could you imagine though, like for example, they saying he can make it to middleweight, and then you got like an absolute beast like Emmanuel Colombo, who you train, who's a huge, and he's like, you can't compare the two guys' sizes, can you? I mean, if they it'll be like it's a mismatch.
So you look at it like this. If you look at Nomeva's almost the same size as Devin Haney. Yeah. Now you imagine putting Nomeva in with Emmanuel Colombo. You wouldn't do that.
No,
it's massive. Yeah, 100%. So it's crazy to see how Americans adjust their mind frames, and I think it's not necessarily about size, but I think it's about skill set and the time spent in the ring to know how well to handle the ring. And I think that's the biggest advantage Americans have had over us over the years, is that they've in terms of skill set, they've been superior over the years. Yes, we've had superb fighters with great skill sets. I'm not saying we don't have skilled fighters, but they've been able to take their skill and they've been able to shift it into divisions, even when they're the smaller guys, and they've been successful. So for me, it's like we need to maybe make that adjustment. And in that terms, I think maybe South Africa is a little bit behind, and I think we could look at that improvement. And I'll give you an example. Even the UK guys are doing it. You look at a guy like Tony Bellew. If I'm not mistaken, he started his career at super middle, quickly shift to light heavy, had a career at light heavy, had his most successful at cruiserweight, and even had I think 2 or 3 fights at heavyweight. So the UK guys are starting to shift it. You look at a guy like Cal Brook, who's been a welterweight, and he fights Golovkin at middleweight. He jumps 2 weight divisions to fight Golovkin. Shouldn't have been thrown in straight after. He shouldn't have been thrown into that fight straight out the bat. He should have had an easier fight, should I say, at middleweight or junior middle, just for the adjustments. Yeah, it is what it is. Not to say Cal Brook is a very skilled fighter, very clever fighter, well groomed, well put together. He's a good fighter to watch. It's just obviously it was a jump too quickly, and where the Americans just slowly build. But as South Africans, I think we need to relook at this and try and bring that same energy and say, okay, well, my guy's had his run at a world title. He's been this division world champion. Maybe he's a little bit older now. The weight's a bit of a harder job to do. Let's shift him up a little bit, and maybe we will get more years out of our fighters' careers.
Well, what do you think about this, right? So we got a set amounts of fighters that regularly get action. I mean, there's only so many fighters that are, every year getting guaranteed fights. And we've got about, 800, I think we were talking earlier, about 800 license boxes for the year 2020. And we only produce 50, 60 fighters per year actually getting an opportunity to go out there and do it. Do you not think that maybe people would jump up in weight division if there just was more opportunity? We're just maybe having a lack of seeing boxes and them not having that opportunity to do so.
So you look at Michael McKenna. He shifts between lightweight and junior welter, and he's been fairly active because he's moving between the two divisions. The only letdown is that he can't go for the SA title unless he's had 3 fights at the weight division. So that's the only little issue he has. They're re-looking at the rule. They're going to possibly change that. So that'll be a benefit. I think if you chop and change divisions too much, I don't think is a good thing. Because, some divisions require a bit more power, some require more speed. Sometimes it's an asset to bring your speed into that division. Sometimes it's when you try and cut down weight, you lose a bit of power. So there's all these variables that get thrown into the mix. And the only way I think to do it is you have your success in one division, you shift to your next division, and so forth. As for activity with guys in South African boxing, I think there's a lot of promoters. There's not enough promoting that's happening. So you maybe have, I'm taking a wild shot here, maybe 40, 50, 100 promoters. Let's say there's 100 promoters.
Yeah.
but only 15 of them are promoting. What is happening to the other 85? Why can't that other 85 support so many other guys? Because if you just give them 10 fighters each, you got 850. Now, if you take that whole 100, you give them 10, we got 1,000. We've got 1,000 fighters. We've only got 800, so we'd have enough promoters. The problem is there's not enough promoting.
So wait, so then it comes down to sort of fundamental promoting. Like promoters are not hustling, they're not promoting, they sort of relying on someone to do something for them in order to make the jump. So that's probably why only 15 out of the, let's just say 100 as an example, actually are doing something because they're like, okay, government's giving me money or some television network's giving me money, so now I can go ahead and do something. But I can't go and ask a corporate sponsor to get on board. I can't go look for a streaming site. I can't, like, it's like almost like those things are impossible to access when in actual fact, that's how you promote.
100%. So if you look at any top promoter in the world, there's always sponsors on that platform. So you'll look at, I'll give you an example, Matchroom. They've got a center sponsor. They've got sponsors all around the ring mat, corner cushions, ring goals, you name it. One of the biggest and most commonly known sponsor in boxing has been Corona. Excuse the pun, coronavirus, but yeah. Okay, it's been Corona. We've seen it over the years, and we've seen Tecate as well.
Yeah. They're two beer companies.
They're two beer companies, but why? We've got a problem in South Africa. Why do we not approach the same mentality? Why haven't we got a Heineken on our ring corner cushions or Castle? But we had Castle on some of the rugby players and that kind of stuff. We don't have it in our ring. We should, even if it's a small sponsorship. For them to throw R1 million for the year in sponsorship is nothing.
Yeah.
So it's just the mind frame of the promoters say, right, I need to go and tackle the right kind of sponsors. I need to find the right kind of people. And it's not even a case of I have to go and restart this whole business and I'm building this thing from scratch. The platform is there because everyone's got it. The business model is there. It's worldwide. Top Rank's got it. Matchroom's got it. Golden Boy's got it. PBC's got it. Frank Warren's got it. All these guys have got that platform. And if you're watching TV and you're doing this, then I can understand. But you're watching with your eyes open and you're not taking notes. You're not looking at these things and saying, right, okay, hold on. They've got a sponsor there. Cool. What kind of industry? Okay, maybe I could line myself up with that. How do I establish myself? Finding a contact that could put me in that kind of channel. And then working from there. Yes, sponsors want advertising. They want exposure. We understand that. And it's part of what our trade-off that we give to sponsors. And we need to fulfill that. But if you're a promoter and you're purely banking on getting government sponsorship, you're going to be waiting. And you're going to be waiting in line because that line is very, very long. And it's going to take a long time before you get to the front of that line. And maybe you're going to get to the front of the line and there ain't no more money anymore. So that's the first problem. The second problem is everyone wants to have TV at an event, okay, but they haven't got the right kind of product to sell. So what stops you from having your own platform? Here I am talking to you right now. We could be watching live boxing on Instagram right now. So there's all these different platforms and people are blindfolded into utilizing that to benefit them to get the exposure. And that's the problem we have, is promoters have stuck to one thing that's been successful for the last 30 years. That's in the last 5 years, should I say, hasn't been as successful as it was in the past. And they still keep in that mind frame instead of changing and adapting. Because if you don't adapt, you die and you don't make it. And the realism is you look at all things. You look at ESPN, they offer free nights of boxing. And then you've got pay-per-view nights. So why not offer the same? Let's offer free boxing and then certain fights get pay-per-view.
Yeah, surely, but even like let's just talk pay-per-view for a second now, right? So pay-per-view was done in South Africa. Whether or not it worked or not, the results were not sort of handed out. They don't, there's no clarification behind that. However, it was done. Are we ready for something like that, or should we offer it for free and say, how do promoters make money? Advertising. Let's just say you put an advertiser or sponsor on there instead of sort of making people. Let's just start with online because obviously we know that television is slowly but surely dying, and online medium is the way to go. So surely we offer that now as a way to start things, and as it sort of builds up, as it gets an audience, surely that's the time that you start charging people for it.
100%. And I think the easiest way to look at this is let's build a community that makes it easy for people to watch boxing. If we offer it for free, perfect. Let's build an audience. Once we've got the audience, then we can look at options. We can say certain nights are free, certain nights are paid. But let me ask you something. You go into the States and you ask them, how much is your pay-per-view for that fight? No, I paid $12 or $10. That's like the equivalent of us paying 20 Rand.
Yeah.
So don't have this mind frame that I need to I got to make 100 Rand or the equivalent, 150, 200 Rand to get my numbers, because people are going, $200, I can go buy a ticket and I can watch that fight live. So what's the point?
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying.
You're supposed to make the person feel like it's an easy click, like you can just access it.
100%. Look at Netflix. We pay what, 150, 180 Rand a month, and look at all the content on Netflix. Now you want to charge more for one night of boxing that's 3 hours, but I can pay Netflix and have access to Netflix the whole night. That's a joke. Just $20, just $10 when we built the audience. And some fights, if it's an attractive South African fight or it's an international fight, charge 20 Rand. If it ain't attractive and you're still in development shows or you've got a good SA title or some local nice matchups, it's for free. Finished.
Right. So when we go on to live streaming and, do we have commentators? Is it the full production or is it just put a camera there, allow people to watch boxing? We'll try and make it as pretty as we can to the best of our abilities. Do we let people know how many viewers are we getting? Like, do we have to be more open about that?
The States is open about it, but you've got to look at the population of the States. So if you're trying to compete to the States, you're in the wrong mind frame. You've got to put your numbers alike, and you've got to say, okay, well, the UK is 60 million people. South Africa is 60 million people. What is the UK's numbers? Okay, so that's our goalpost. We want to be the same as UK. Not the same as America, because America got 150 million people. Now, we've got 60 million in the UK. It's more realistic. We could aim at equivalating to the same amount of viewership. Yes, we're not going to be there in the first round, but this is a 12-round fight. Okay, and we've got to go through it bit by bit, and that's the key. It's just about building that audience. We can share whatever we need to do, but you know what we need to share? The most important is content and viewership. That's the most important. Whether there was 100 people, 1,000 people, or 1 million people watching, that makes no difference as long as people are watching.
Yeah, I think the key is that offer it for, like what I said earlier, offer it for free. Let people watch as much boxing as they want. When it gets to a point where it is feasible to start charging people, then do it, because obviously then you can't do anything for free for a significant period of time. But in order to gain traction and in order to people start watching boxing, particularly South African boxing, because I know the UK is the second biggest sport there, I think South Africa is number 8. We want to bring people back. How do we do it? Give it to them for free. Why charge someone money when they have no reason to buy it if they don't really like it yet?
100%. We've got to capture a market, and that's what we've got to do. And the best viewership we had in boxing was when it was on SABC. And why? Because it's set to go out to numerous homes. And every now and again, someone asks me, what happened to blah, blah, blah? And those are the great days of boxing. But people were watching boxing for free. Now you want people to pay. Wrong. You want viewers. And if you want viewers, give it to them for free. And as soon as you give people something for free, they'll watch the content because they know they don't have to pay for it. And that's important.
You see, the money translates like there. Like, you're giving content for free. However, you're making money on advertisement, because why? Advertisers all of a sudden want to be shown in front of millions of people. That's how they should be making the money. The people shouldn't have to fork out pockets full of their monthly income in order to watch the content. No pay-per-view. Like, that's just, for now, it's just not feasible for pay-per-views to be existing in South Africa.
100%. I agree with you completely. And I think also another thing that I think you will feel the same way. I'm tired of DSTV. And the only reason I have a DSTV account is because I want to watch the boxing on SuperSport. That is the only reason I keep DSTV. If I didn't have that, if I didn't have DSTV, it wouldn't make no difference in my life. I'll stick on Netflix, go online, it's easy, and I'm done. I don't need to have DSTV, but I want to have SuperSport because it offers viewers the possibility to watch Supersport. So I won't be surprised if in a year or two from now, you'll see Supersport will have their own platform. You'll pay $150 or $200 a month, and you watch all the sport.
Mm. I mean, that would be good. I mean, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. I mean, I watch the football as well. If you look at there, you'll see Liverpool Football Club. I mean, I'm a big football supporter. So, you know, like
30 years later.
Yeah. So I mean, let's
Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's not say anything bad. Anyway, what I wanted to ask you as well was like, let's just say now we were talking about weight divisions earlier. I want to revisit that topic because some people might have just logged on now and, you know, were interested maybe in that topic. When you're changing someone's weight division, remember you said that you can jump through weight divisions. Let's use one of your boxes as an example. I'll use Ricky Shabalala. He was a super middleweight. At one stage, he came to you and you dropped him down to middleweight. How long does it take before you can say this guy is fully ready in his new weight division?
So I think it's all based on the performances and how comfortable they make weight and that kind of thing. It's all done on assessment. And an assessment can't necessarily be done in the gym because, sure, a guy could make weight, then you put him in sparring. It's not the same. And I think it's about putting a guy in a division, seeing if he's comfortable. How well did he perform? Did he perform better in this division or the previous one? Does he need another outing to see if he's comfortable and take it from there? You know, Ricky was a super middle, but Ricky walks around at 80 kilos. Okay. Now, super middle is 76. It's 4 kilos. The Charlo brother, that's the WBC world champion, walks around at 82 to 83 and cuts down to 72 for his fight. So if he's able to do that, why can't Ricky do it?
Yeah, 100%.
Surely. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. If you've got the structure, the height, everything, why aren't you able? The same as I look at a guy like Patrick McQualla. Perfect example. The guy walks probably around 79 kilos. He cuts to 76. Wrong. My view is that boy should be a middleweight. Drop him down to 72, and I think you've got a new animal. I think he hits extremely hard. He'll be quick. I think he'll feel very strong at the division. I think the super middles are too big for him.
Yeah.
He's a small super middle. And what will make it worse is when he gets to the bigger divisions, not the bigger divisions, when he gets to the bigger leagues, he's going to feel tiny. And that's the realism of it.
So I think an interesting question is, you know, like when it comes to picking your weight division for your size, I mean, some people, they fluctuate so much. There is no sort of natural weight that they walk around at, and sort of picking a weight division that you're good at. And then, you know, maybe sometimes making a mistake to realize, I actually should have dropped 1 or 2 weight divisions, or I should have gone up a weight division. I'm killing myself too much. I think it's an interesting topic because it almost comes down to the trainer and the boxer that has to decide, you know, where you at, and, you know, how much time do you put into develop someone into a particular weight division that you feel their body structure should be, you know?
I get you. And I think it comes down to one important factor between a trainer and a boxer. It comes down to honesty. Because if you're cutting weight and you feel terrible and you can't sleep at night and you feel drawn, and the boxer walks into the gym and he's like, and he's 4 days out from the fight, you've got to relook at things. It's not the best situation. You've got to say, right, I think if we shift you up a division, you'll make weight a little bit easier. You'll feel a bit more comfortable. And there's a fine line between a fighter making weight and dehydrating. And that's what you've got to be careful of. A dehydrated athlete is dangerous. A fighter that makes weight comfortably is perfect. A guy that may struggle a bit is perfect. But a fighter that suffers and then dehydrates himself to make a fight, you're looking for trouble.
Gee, and then have you ever had a situation where you're looking at a guy and he's telling you one thing and you're thinking a complete other? He's saying, okay, I can only make this, and you're thinking, no, my friend, you can actually make a lower weight division, or vice versa, a higher weight division.
I think it is kind of those situations, and like I said, it's something you evaluate in the gym. And as the guy's cutting weight and he gets to 69, or I'll give you a random example, 69. So a year ago, actually before the Boyd and Brandon fight, the first one, Brandon had made weight for that fight comfortably, but he had just fought before that. And he made weight very easy at 69. And I thought to him, you know what, Brands, I think if we stretch it, we could push you to 66.
Sure.
And I thought to myself, it'll be a hell of a stretch, but I think he can make it. And we prepared, and the Boyd fight happened. Then Brandon had the fight against Abia, and it was a tougher weight cut. And I thought, okay, that's fine. And then we went into the Rourke fight, and he made weight a bit easier, a lot easier actually. And I thought to myself, the last thing I want to do is stretch this kid to make a division. And yeah, sometimes he makes division easier, sometimes it's not. It comes down to the training. Some training camps go better than others. Some you're going to be like, I made weight like a walk in the park. And some you're going to be like, yes, that was a suffer. So you've got to be careful with fighters like that. Either, Emmanuel used to make 69 in a heartbeat. There was no issue. Now he's got to stretch that little bit more to make 69. So is he going to be at 69 forever? I don't think so. Maybe another 2 years, and then we'll have to relook at the division, or 3 years and then relook at the division, because the body is changing. He's getting a bit older. There's maybe more testosterone. There's less testosterone. So the guys are putting on more muscle. They're putting on less muscle. It all comes down to that. It comes down to lifestyle. Is he eating cheeseburgers every weekend, or during training he's eating cheeseburgers? Then what? We understand why there's an issue with weight and why it fluctuates and it doesn't. So there's all those variables that come into play.
Here's an interesting question. Now that we're talking about weight divisions and so forth, if there wasn't such a big gap between light heavyweight and cruiserweight, do you think there would be a perfect division for Junior Makabu in the middle? Or was it too much weight?
Yes and no. Because if you had to say to me, Damien, 79 is light heavy, 90, almost 91, let's call it, is cruiserweight. In between that, we're going to take 85. I'm going to say to you, 85 is too much.
Sure.
Say to me 86 and a half, and I say yes.
Okay, so would 86 and a half be better than cruiserweight for him?
Not necessarily. You look at a guy like Mike Tyson, a lot shorter than most heavyweights. Was he successful at heavyweight?
Yeah.
So then?
Yeah. No, I fully understand that, but I'm saying, like, you sort of...
He hasn't... Yes, he's not 6'2" or 6'1".
Would he lose power going down, though?
Possibly. It's not something we've tried. There's no reason for us to touch 86.5 kilos because he doesn't need to make that.
Has he fought at light heavyweight before?
I think in his first 2 pro fights, if I'm not mistaken, under my dad, and I think it just became a little bit difficult to make it. And yeah, he shifted to cruiserweight. He's been at cruiserweight ever since. And for me, I think there needs to be that weight division in boxing. It's crazy to have divisions in boxing where it's literally this much weight, and then you've got all of a sudden you've got 11 kilos. It's crazy. It's mad. How do you go from 1 kilo to now 11?
Sure, yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, he carries himself at cruiserweight. He knocks guys out regularly. Obviously, he's at world level now, so it's a little bit harder to just knock guys out clean every time. But I mean, he still has the power to do so. And obviously, he's on hold. Everyone's on hold at the moment. So it's frustrating, particularly for the guys that fight internationally, like him, like world champions. The likes. I mean, how is he right now? I mean, do you guys chat a lot, and how's he feeling?
He's good. Resting at home, taking time out. Junior had 3 tough fights in the space of 7 months, so he really, really deserves his rest period. I think it's well earned, and yeah, he's just enjoying life. I mean, he's just become WC world champion, so I think right now he's in a very good space in his career, and I think anyone that's ahead of him needs to understand that he's in a very good space. So they're going to get probably the best Junior Makabu. There's a lot of things that play in your mind as a fighter, maybe financial issues, maybe you question your career, your self-confidence. Now you come in with a different mind frame. Now you're world champion. You're the top. You're the number 1. And everyone wants a piece of you. And one thing I learned from my dad is it's easier to win the belt than it is to keep the belt. So you need to take that confidence, that feeling of being on top of the world, but make yourself feel like you're not at the top of the world, so that you still treat yourself like a challenger trying to reach new heights.
I guess that's the most difficult part of sort of a boxer's psychology, is to keep the hunger once you get to the top, because I mean, it's, as you said, it's it's hard to get the title, but it's even harder to stay the champion. So for him now to sit at home, particularly now in COVID, and rest, sit back. I don't know. Maybe he's obviously training himself to keep fit and so forth. But without sparring and not being in the training gym, you kind of like you're out of the loop. So everyone's going to come back a little bit rusty. He's a WBC world champion, so people are almost going to expect him to fight a sensational fighter when he comes back. So in terms of that psychology, I mean, doesn't that even make it worse?
Not really. I think it's when you're at that level, there's a lot of things you want to accomplish. You want to defend your title. You want to unify. There's many things. There's one or two other big names that get thrown into the mix. There's like Dotikos, there's Bradis, there's Gulamarian. There's all these names that get thrown into the mix here, and you want to be like, I want to take them all out. They must all go. Move out my way. I'm coming to take all those belts. They're all going to be mine. You have to have that same mentality Usyk had. I'm coming to take over the whole division. And that's the same mind frame Junior carries. He tells himself, I want to be number one. I want to have all the belts.
I mean, you're a young trainer, and you got a WBC cruiserweight world champion. It's a happening division in the world. I mean, being so young and having this world champion, in your stable, who you both yourself and your dad trained and sort of made into the man he is today. I mean, how does that feel?
So yeah, some days you're like accepting of it. You're like, geez, I've produced this world champion, and sometimes you're like, you don't even believe it. It doesn't feel real because you think to yourself like, how did we get to this point? This is madness, And did I think to myself, we were off to the fight against Taylor Mabika in Congo, and I was like, no, don't worry. Next year, in like a year and 3 months, he's going to be WBC world champion. Like your mind can't fathom the fact that we're going from this, and in a year and a half, it could be this or it could be this. You know what I'm saying? So you just process what's happening at that current time, and I think it'll really sink in when we going into that next fight and it's possibly a unification or we're making that defense. I think it'll be like, whoa, we've got something. And I think it's when we go into training camp that feeling will come that we've got something that we need to protect. This is ours. These things don't come to Africa often. We need to hold on to this thing extremely tight. And I think that'll give more motivation to want to do better.
But surely this is the continent that has so much potential, but unfortunately no investment. So, there are guys out there that often leave to go to like France. Like a lot of the Congolese boxers will, for example, go to France and become French, nationalize and so forth, and then represent France and win world titles. So we kind of always lose out on that sort of factor. But you've got a guy like Ilunga Makabu who's stuck to his country. He's come to South Africa to train. He's gone all over the world. He's done what he's done. And now you've got someone like Emmanuel Colombo, who's sort of, we don't want to jinx anything, but he's going in a trajectory like that. I mean, that's exciting, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's just a show of consistency, should I say, in the gym, that we're able to produce champions. And it's not just we've got our first world champion, should I say, our team's produced its first world champion in Junior Makabu, but there's prospects, and I think that's most important because it shows consistency. There's improvements. There's growth, and I think that's most important. You can't just have one champion and you've made it. It doesn't work like that. As a trainer and as a manager, you've got to produce the goods, and the only way you produce the goods is by producing these champions and showing that you're on that road. You can have that road with one fighter. That's all good and well, but that's one. So it doesn't mean you have the right recipe. It's when you're producing champions and your surroundings is with champions, then you're on the right track. And I know that a lot of my fighters are on the right track. You look at Junior, he's made a success of himself. He's turned his career around. He's become world champion after losing to Tony Bellew. You look at a guy like Emmanuel Colombo, on the right track. 36 in the world on BoxRec, 15 in the WBO. You look at a guy like Jackson Chauke, number 11 on BoxRec in the world. Rated in three organizations, Dumezweni. So there's youngsters that I've got that are going to get to that stage as well. So we're on the right path. We've got champions on our gym. It's great. I think it's motivating for everyone because we've got to hold on to what we have and we've got to bring more home. And I think that's power.
But I mean, it's got big news in Africa. I mean, it's not just your gym. In the cruiserweight division, at least, we've got Kevin Arena, Tabiso Mchunu, and we got Ilunga Makabu, 3 in the top 5 of the world rankings, according to BoxRec at least, in the cruiserweight division. I mean, that's obviously the best for Africa, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think the last time I think we only really see this kind of, should I say, guys at this level is in the smaller divisions. So it's nice to see us for change in the bigger division. So it's showing that South Africa can have both. We not just make good small champions. We can make good big champions as well. And you look at a guy like Kevin, who's, when Tabiso and Junior fought each other, I think Kevin was still having local SA fights. I don't even think he had fought for the SA title yet. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he was still early in his career. Now he's featuring there. He's IBO world champion. He's got good ratings in all the organizations. He could go any route he chooses. He could come to us at the WBC. He could go, I think, in the IBF. I think he's got a rating in the WBA. So he's got 3 options. You look at Tabiso. Tabiso's got 1 option at the moment. I think he might have a rating at the IBF. I'm not too sure. Somewhere there, I think 8 or 10. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he might be rated in one other division. So we've got, all of a sudden, we've got guys that are of quality. And so the biggest key is our guys need to earn good money.
Yeah.
And that's the fact. These are big boys. And we know when it comes to big boys need to be paid. There's a different money in heavyweight as there is to minimum weight. There's worlds apart when it comes to that kind of thing. And all 3 are deserving of good money.
It's kind of sad, though, that we don't, you speak about the big boys, like, South Africa hasn't produced, like, a heavyweight in such a long time.
Corey Sanders.
That was the last one.
Yeah. So, the sad thing is we lose our big guys to rugby. That's the realism of it. It's an easier road. Not to say it's easy. It's never easy to be a professional sportsman and compete at the highest level. It's not. But the road is a little bit more paying earlier in rugby than it is in boxing. And, you can step onto a field and there's 15 guys on a rugby field that are all getting paid. But there's only one fucking person at the top in boxing that's getting paid. And that's the realism of it. There's only one Deontay Wilder that's cashing in a big check. Now there's Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. But if you put them all together, there's only going to get one guy that's going to get the big money. The rest are still sitting here until they become a world champion and they make good money.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, being a youngster and sort of being, let's just say you're a high school student now, you're doing amateur boxing, you're looking at the pay of the first couple of fights that you're going to get. Let's just say you get 4,000 Rand for your first fight. It's difficult to accept.
So I see Kevin's written here, I'll be going up to heavyweight after 3 or 4 fights. I'm making cruiser. It's not easy, to be honest. In my opinion, it's something I could foresee. Kevin's a really, really built guy. He's broad. He's solid. I think he's 6 foot, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a guy that's come with no amateur experience, coming to boxing. He's done really, really well. He wants to shift to heavyweight because he's struggling with weight. And there we go. We spoke about earlier about guys sticking in the division for too long and they struggle to make it. Here, that's what he's thinking. I need to move division because it's becoming too difficult. And maybe it's taking 5 or 10% out of his game when he gets into that ring at night.
Yeah. So look, I mean, when you get to sort of, I think for Kevin at least, I mean, he wants to capture, unify a title at cruiserweight. That's why he says about 3 or 4 more fights. I think he envisions that, and then naturally move up to heavyweight, I'm guessing, and go climb and try get the heavyweight glory as well. I think every youngster, when they're young, wants to be the world heavyweight champion, don't they? You just dream of being the world heavyweight champion. It's just the title that goes.
Yeah, I think when you look at boxing, and it's quite, to be honest, it's quite difficult to make to think of it like this. You're growing up, and your aim is to be a heavyweight. But some of our best fights we've ever seen in history have been in welterweight, middleweight, all around there. Your average guy size, the guy that walks around the street that's 80 kilos, that is your middleweight. And we've seen some of the best fights in the world at that weight. And let's talk about Canelo and Triple G. 2 great fights. Both get in the ring at 72 kilos. So they walk around at 80 kilos. You see a guy like Canelo who takes like Kovalev at light heavy, 79 kilos. So he must have gone, I wouldn't have, being clever about this, I don't think he would have tried to put on too much size. He did put on size for the fight, and he was a bit more cautious. He didn't want to blow himself out by working too hard in the fight. So he was conservative. He walked Kovalev down. He slowly broke him apart and he knocked him out. It was a very, very close fight. Going into the 10th, I had the fight very, very even. And yeah, it was, for me, I think it was, you look at a guy like that who's able to go up to light heavyweight from when he first won his youth world title, I think at Walters.
So, I think it was, but he was also like, what is he? How old was he when he won that?
I think he was 19 when he won the youth, or 18. So I was listening to a WBC talk, and they were actually talking about it, and they were talking about how these WBC world champions have touched all the different belts. You look at a guy like the one guy that's in charge of the WBC youth that said it's something you don't fathom is you give this youngster this green belt, this youth world title, and a few years later he becomes one of the greatest middleweights we've ever seen, and the WBC world champion. And then they were talking about guys that won international titles and then gone on to win the world title, and how the growth of this all comes about. And you don't even realize. You look at a guy like Triple G, who used to feature on Rodney's Bulls in Monaco. You talk about Martin Murray, and then you go see where these guys go on, and you mix in these circles. And that's another thing we don't realize as South Africans. When we go overseas, we're like, oh my God, we're here with these superstars. This is everyday life. It's like me and Sean seeing each other, and me and Colin seeing each other, and Kevin and Junior and seeing each other. This is normal, you know what I'm saying? And we get overwhelmed by the media and all of that kind of thing. And I think if we gave ourselves the same kind of attention with media, I think we could create the same kind of hype.
I think an interesting point, and I wanted to ask you about South African managers, trainers, promoters. Well, maybe not promoters, but certainly managers and sort of trainers working together to sort of give each other opportunities that maybe the other guy can't get for their boxer. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good thing. I think at the end of the day, this is South African boxing. And I'm young now, but let's say I retire at 50 or 55 from boxing. Damien leaves boxing. South African boxing stays the same. Colin leaves boxing. South African boxing stays the same. Peter leaves boxing. Sean leaves boxing. All these other players that are in it, Matiti, Rumble Africa, Rodney, when we leave it, SA boxing is still there. But all these people that are here are gone. And we need to try and find a way to bring more home. And the more opportunities we give to home, the better we make our name. Because you know what the problem is? African fighters go over, they feature on bills, they get knocked out or they get smashed to smithereens, okay? And we lose the reputation as African fighters. And every now and again, we come along with a good world champion and we're successful, and South Africa's still holding on to that strength that we produce good fighters. But we need to work together in order to send our good South Africans overseas. So if I get an offer, okay, from someone that's looking for someone's fighter, I'm going to pass it on. I had a matchmaker contact me and say, Damien, I'm looking for Johnny Miller. Actually, no problem. Here's Harold's number. Harold doesn't know that I've even passed the number on. But it happened during lockdown. I said, at the moment, we can't travel, but here's his number. You can contact his manager. His manager's name's Harold Fulbrecht. You can chat to him about the fight. Not knowing that it came from me, that I directed it there. But we need to pass on these opportunities. Now, if I get an opportunity, a guy comes to me and says, Damien, I'm looking for a welterweight. I've seen this name, Tools and Benge. I phone Sean and say, listen, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for Tools to fight for, crazy figure, $20,000. Here's the title. This is what's being offered. If the deal comes together, sure, give me a little kickback on the deal. Fair enough, because I put the parties together. And go do your thing. But the same breath, it's also like, why must I say no? I'm not going to give the opportunity to Tools. I'm not going to do it. You know, I had an offer from the States. I phoned Jody. I said, Jody, there's an offer. They're looking for a heavyweight. The one that I can think of that meets the criteria is maybe Flo. Are you keen? Yeah, I'm keen. Okay. If we do the deal, let's talk about something. She's like, no problem. Done. Anton was the same. I got an offer for Michael McKenna. I offered it to Anton. Anton says, yeah, we're keen. Actually, okay, no problem. Let's see if we can make it happen. So it's all about having these mind frames, not to discredit ourselves from the opportunity. There's another manager, Bruno. If I get an opportunity for one of his fighters, why must I neglect him the opportunity of his boy maybe bringing home a title to South Africa to create more recognition? Because we all cry when we say, oh, but we only got one world champion. Maybe we would have had 3 if we given other guys opportunities instead of saying, my road's closed, I'm not giving the opportunities.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I mean, that's the real reality. I mean, as you said, maybe a lot of it is an emotional thing, but, obviously we don't know for a fact of deals that weren't made because of such, because we would have never heard of him in the first place.
Definitely. But at the end of the day, I understand professional boxing is a business. Amateur boxing is a sport. There's nothing wrong with doing business between each other as long as we're honorable. And we've all got to eat out of one pot. It's the same pot, and that pot's called boxing. So why mustn't we eat? That's the realism of it. Is give the opportunity. Cool, you got the opportunity. Please, I want X percentage just for negotiating the deal, just like they do it all over the world. Top Rank ran into a situation now where they didn't have an opponent for Maloney. And they got onto Golden Boy, and Golden Boy gave them a fighter. And the Golden Boy fighter won. So you look at those kind of things, and this is the realism of it. Let's give each other opportunities. That's what it needs to be. It needs to come down to give each other opportunities. Let's bring attention to South African boxing. Let's be successful as a whole. Because when I go overseas, I want to be like, oh yeah, no, he's from South Africa. Hey, they make good fighters in South Africa. You better be careful. Not, you Oaks have produced a champion here and there along the time. I don't want that. It's the same as when we bring out an American. Hey, he's from America. Eh? Yeah, there might be levels apart. Everyone's a bit nervous. So let's create that same nervousness. But the only way we're going to do it is if we pass on opportunities to one another.
Yeah, but don't you think as well, in saying about the whole mentality of South Africans going overseas, and maybe because of what's happened, people are like you said, oh, we got an easy fight coming up, and the opposite situation when Americans come in, you're like, we're in for a big one. We have some of the best trainers, I feel. Seriously, we have great trainers, and no one knows them because they're only getting so limited opportunities.
So you look at South African trainers, and they're very, very successful. You look at guys like Harold, who's been a successful trainer. You look at guys like Peter's a successful trainer. Look what he's done with his fighters. You look at a guy like Rowan, come a long way. You look at Kevin, come a long way. So he's producing his own goods. Okay. You look at Colin. Look at what he did with Hecky's career. Hecky's had an outstanding career. So we've got good trainers. The problem is exposure is only so much. So why is it that we hear about these trainers that everyone raves about? Oh, he trains this WBC champion or this champion, but he's only ever produced 2 champions in his life, where we've produced multiple champions, but no one knows our names. But we know more about the sport than those guys. They've just been given opportunities. That's what's happened. They've had platforms where they're able to do these kinds of things.
Isn't it funny, when, for example, Zolani Tete enters that huge Muhammad Ali trophy, all of a sudden in the semifinals, they're talking about sending him over to Floyd Mayweather Sr. when, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, You're going to send him to Floyd Mayweather Sr., where you've got a fully capable team right here that's taken you to the point that you are. And evidently they speak your language. They're speaking, the boxing language that he's learned his whole life.
I disagree with that move that they pulled there. You're going to an American gym and you're fighting an American fighter. Because no one can tell me Nonito Doné is Philippines.
Do you know how many
he spent his whole life in
gyms? Do you know how many spars there are in the gyms?
In the States, that happens all the time. You could be in your training camp and some random oak walks in and he's standing there, I want to find out about the gym. In the meantime, he's watching your sparring. So it happens all the time. These things happen in boxing. Sometimes boxing is clean and sometimes it's not. And it's just the realism of it. The thing is, there was nothing wrong with Zolani Tete preparing in South Africa. There was no reason he shouldn't. He had all the sparring he needed. If you had to say to me, we don't have enough sparring, we're going to have to go out somewhere else to find sparring, I'd say 100%. But now you bring in a guy that 100%, but you bring it to you. Now you want to say to me, no, we're going to go there because we need the expertise. Those expertise never got you to where you are. and they ain't going to get you to where you're going. You got to where you're going because of what you've got and what you know. So continue with what you know. Sure, add in a bit of value there, add in a bit of value there. But to take a boy that's defending his WBO, he's had the chance to make it to the finals of the Super Series, be seen as one of the greatest fighters in South African history if he had won let's say he won the trophy. But now you go and put him in a situation, the guy lands up tearing his shoulder. It's not right, eh?
Mm-mm. No. Look, with that situation right there, it was also, I think, what was it, 6 weeks out before the fight, something crazy like that, I think. Was it 6 weeks?
The shoulder. Yeah, they pulled him to the States about 4 weeks before the fight.
And then the shoulder happened literally in the first
And the
week.
shoulder happened not even. I think the shoulder started giving problems, but they couldn't cut off training. You know, a lot of fighters get into the ring, they've had injuries, or they have injuries when they get into it's professional boxing. These things happen. It's not unheard of. It is a contact sport. Things happen in sparring, blah blah blah, in training, because you're pushing your body to the limit. And it's that injury happened a week before they were supposed to leave to Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken. The fight was supposed to happen in Glasgow. Am I right?
He was fighting Nonito Donaire. Was it on the undercard of the Scottish guy?
Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor.
Yeah. So the fight was happening in Glasgow. And they arrived at the press conference. I think the press conference was on the Monday. And the fight was going to be on the Saturday. And they announced that Zolani Tete wasn't going to be able to fight because of a shoulder injury. And they had to find a late replacement. Yeah, look, it was just a wrong call. And then obviously the injury happened. He was supposed to, and then he came back and was going to fight Casemiro. And I don't know if they took it lightly. Things happen in a fight, whatever it may be. They were maybe talking about, instead of focusing on Casemiro, they were starting to talk about other things and Inyo and all of that kind of stuff. Instead of focusing on the task at hand, the title shifted hands. Now Zolani's in a position, he's going to have to try and regain the title. It is what it is. It's boxing. We learn from our mistakes. I think the most important thing is us as outsiders need to learn from that mistake and not make that same mistake. Never underestimate our personal abilities of the sport and what we know of the sport, because South African trainers, managers, we've been there before. We've done that. We've got the T-shirts, all of that kind of stuff. So we don't need to undermine ourselves by thinking someone else is better.
Yeah. So do you have a question for me, Damien? I believe you had something.
So how do I want to ask you, let's see. I want to look at all of your interviews. So let's do this. Okay. You chatted to Mike Altamura, okay?
Yeah.
Which is Colin's business partner.
Yeah.
Okay, can you give the viewers maybe an understanding of how the relationship formed, what value Mike brings to the table for South Africans, and how did the relationship evolve, and what are their roles within their company? So what is Colin's role? What is Mike's role? And because a lot of us South Africans, we're not sure. We're like, okay, well, he's his business partner. Cool, I know that. I chat to Mike. And we communicate, and I've got an idea of the role. I'm just saying, like, how did that relationship start? Where did it come from? What is the future of it? And what is each one's role? Because obviously Colin's got the South African fighters. Yeah. Is it a case of Mike's got the contacts? Is it a case that Colin's got the contacts, Mike's got the contacts, but together they have more contacts? And yeah, how does that all come together?
It's actually a great question, because we covered it on the episode. Is sort of to a lesser degree. We did an interview for SA Boxing Talk on the YouTube channel, and Mark and Colin, how did they meet? They met on a chat room. Can you believe it? A boxing forum. Let's put it that way. And Mark Altamura has a big involvement in boxing, particularly in Ghana. You know, he had a good relationship with Isaac Dogbo. That was he managed that boxer. So in terms of African boxing, they had met each other along the way. I know Colin now is, as everyone should know, is the head of MTK Africa. Mike is a consultant for MTK. So he works, he's based in Australia, and he sort of consults around the world.
Is he for the group MTK, or is he a consultant for MTK Africa?
Global. MTK Global.
Okay. So he's part of Global.
Yeah.
Okay. I get you.
yeah, so that's basically the connection. And now sort of let's hope that MTK can present some opportunities for some of the, the African boxers. He's someone as they're saying, come to the Cape, for MTK, but it's obviously MTK as well. I think there's a lot of talent in Cape Town, which obviously doesn't get showcased. So maybe that's another good stomping ground.
Yeah, I think, look, there is talent in Cape Town. I think they need more events, more active promoters. The problem is there's not enough activity happening in Cape Town, or regular activity. And the problem is a lot of these guys have to either come up to Joburg or Eastern Cape for activity. And like we said, there's 100 promoters, but only 15 are doing something. So that's where the problem comes in.
No, also like if you look at how the different provinces develop boxes as well, you've got Gauteng, which I think actually do it the best, to be honest with you, and that's not just being based here. I just think that like Eastern Cape boxers, they love rushing their boxers into the hardest possible fighters as early as possible. And in Cape Town, they end up getting boxers to 20-0, and they fought next to nobody. Like you wonder.
So the one's too fast, the other one's too slow. Gauteng's got the base right.
Yeah, so I think that's why, but also we got the opportunities as well. So maybe that's why we blessed to have to be in such a position. Let's put it that way. But the formulas are weird when you're looking at the thing, because you got SA champions from Eastern Cape, 4-0, 3-0. Like it's just like a natural thing. Cape Town, before we even look at a WBF Africa title, we're looking at about 21-0. So
100% agree with you. So you got like, and then you look at an SA champion from Gauteng, and maybe he's had 14 or 15 fights. East London's got 4. But it comes down to the amateur system, and this is the thing. So there's an amateur system in Eastern Cape that's very, should I say, well put together. It's well run. There's a lot of activity. Then you go to Gauteng, and it's okay, but it's not great. It could be a lot better than what it should be. And then you go to Cape Town, and from my understanding, it's non-existent. You've got a bigger white-collar community in Cape Town than I think there's an amateur community.
Sure, there's I think in the last 5 years, I mean, from what I've been seeing, I mean, you got guys that are coming through the amateur system from Cape Town who are sort of putting them on the map now. We got a huge fights like Baby Jacob Bongata versus Abdulaziz Kunert in the featherweight division to determine who's the best sort of prospect in that division. So I see a little bit of hype coming up.
But Tian Fick, what about Tian Fick, the SA heavyweight?
But he's also in his mid-30s, isn't he? So it's like...
Sure, but we've seen heavyweights at 45 doing something.
Yeah, you have a point with that. But as well, like, how hard is it for a guy like Tian Fick to get sparring in Cape Town when how many heavyweights are there in Cape Town,
It's happened a lot. We've seen a lot of Cape Town fighters come up to Johannesburg to spar and prepare for fights. It's a situation. And don't get me wrong, it is an unfortunate situation, but it happens all over the world. There's some places in the States that there's no boxing and guys have to move out of their province, their state, in order to get sparring. So I've got another question for you. And a lot of people don't ask you this question, well, because I don't think anyone's really flipped the role on you. I think it's the first time you've ever had this.
Wow.
Tell us about your experience in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, let me tell you, Saudi Arabia was the biggest eye-opener in my boxing journalism career. And the reason why is I can see how, and I don't want to get too many people knocking, like South African promotions and so forth, but I saw how you promote an event and how you bring, it's the closest thing you're going to get to the United States and America. Why? Because it's been done by a UK-based promoter, right? So seeing how they get 8,000 people from a country like Saudi Arabia, a country that doesn't know anything about boxing, stacking 8,000 people in there to watch Amir Khan, who's a British boxer, to be fair. He's a Pakistan boxer. He's not a Saudi Arabian boxer. So getting those people, that was the biggest eye-opener for me, to see how they do it and sort of the stages. And I'm more than happy to share with people that ask me the question, how do they do that exactly, Because I've seen in South Africa how not to do it, So that's the difference. And for me, interviewing people like Paulie Malignaggi in person, Samuel Peters, who had fought a lot of the top heavyweight guys and was a very scary heavyweight back in his day as well. Those sort of experiences. Amir Khan, seeing him all the superstars, Lorenzo
I met
Lamini on his
I
journey.
met him. I met Amir Khan in Wild Card when he was still
Mhm.
under Freddie, and it was a very, very nice person. I don't know how you found him in Saudi Arabia.
He was you know what? Amir Khan is a nice person. He is surrounded in Saudi Arabia by about 10 or 12 bodyguards. So, like, for fans to get to him, near on impossible. And
Okay,
there were a lot of people that loved Amir. When he stepped on stage, he was like a king. You know,
hundred
that's like,
percent. No, he's appreciated, and you see, maybe it's also we look at it again. People are dying for content,
mhm.
and maybe they were dying for live action. That's what they really, really wanted. So it was a perfect to go and put it there in the middle of Saudi Arabia, and people were happy. Put the right box as the main card, fill up the undercard, great, and then you've got the support. The other thing we don't have is South Africans don't get off their lazy bums and come to the boxing because it's our fault. Actually, it's not their fault because they're finding something to do on a Friday. People are tired of going to each other's houses for a braai or to a bar or whatever. They would be keen to go to the boxing. The problem is when we have a live concert in South Africa or in Johannesburg particularly, when you go to street polls, you see there's a concert coming. But
Mm.
South African boxing, we don't put no advertising. And that's the biggest letdown because maybe if people saw on this pole or at the robot, there's the sign, boxing, Edenvale Community Center, for instance, it would get more support. But our promoters lack the ability to create the right advertising.
Isn't that why, you know, we look at mixed martial arts and you look at like EFC Africa becoming EFC worldwide, did so well in the beginning because they were everywhere. Their advertising was on the street corners, their marketing was all over Facebook.
Definitely.
You know, and they didn't have
So,
any champions, so to speak, when they started. We have champions that we can already put on a plate for everyone.
100%. So I know Graham quite well from EFC, and you know what it felt like?
Mhm.
And I've been around boxing my whole life, and I'd seen it from SABC to Super Sport, all that kind of stuff. EFC made you feel like it was an American production in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Or a UK production in South Africa. That's what it made you feel. It gave you tally of the tapes. It had promo videos. They had build-ups on Twitter, build-ups on Instagram. There was all this investment that was put into it. And for me, I think that was just a perfect opportunity to bring in something. And they blew up the market and they had the right fighters, the right names. Yes, there was no champions, but they built up a following. And that's what it did. Here's Kevin saying, Lorena Makabu fills up the dome. 100%. But the problem is, deserving of what Kevin deserves to get in the ring and deserving of what Junior deserves to get in the ring is this. And the problem is, there's not enough this. So you can have Super Sport pay for the fight, Rodney could pay for the fight, but it's not going to be enough of this. Yes, we could sell out 10 to 20,000 people, 3 months advertising, sure, it would be a great event. We could do it. And the realism of it is, for Kevin, it's a risky fight. For Junior, it's a risky fight. So it needs to be well worth the risk. That's the realism of it. Because like we said, these guys are in the top 5 of the division. Let them get paid like the top 5 in the division, like how Americans would get paid or how Europeans or UK fighters would get paid. Why must he fight for South African rands? Why must Junior fight for South African rands? We want fucking USD, dollars, boss. International currency. That's what these boys deserve to earn. Because they're top 5 in the world. Bottom line.
It's crazy because, I mean, if you think about television rights for those fights, I mean, technically they could be sold all over the world. I'm pretty sure fighting networks like ESPN, Fox Sports, DAZN, there's huge things out there. We're talking top 5 in the world in the cruiserweight division, which is one of the most spoken about divisions. And as you said, just because they happen to be boxing in South Africa, they're not going to be getting, quote unquote, what they deserve.
Yeah, look, I'll give you an example. We look at Tabiso versus Junior, 2016. ICC was completely full in Natal. Both those fighters were underpaid. Number 1 and number 2 in the world. Or at that time, number 2 and number 3. I think they were fighting for the number 1 position, or it was an eliminator. They were 1 and 2, whatever the little bits to it to fight for the world title. Both of them were underpaid. And that's the sad reality. Both fighters were underpaid to fight in South Africa. Why? Because the currency kills us. They should have been paid in USD, good money for number one position. That's what should have happened. But both fighters were underpaid.
So, I mean, I know obviously maybe you don't have the answer to this, but how does it change? I mean, is it going to take a while before, I mean, a fight like Kevin Durant versus Junior Makabu, is it likely that they'll get paid like that fighting in South Africa, or would they have to go fight somewhere else in the world in order to get decent pay?
And they'll probably fight overseas and get more viewership overseas than if a fight that happen in South Africa.
And tell me now, would
Junior versus Kevin, Junior versus Tabiso, Tabiso versus Kevin would get a better following putting it under the on an undercard of a mega fight in the US. That's the realism of it is. There would be more viewership. There would be more money.
A co-main event.
Yeah, a co-main event, cruiserweight title of the world, whatever it may be. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
Two of the best, whatever, no matter how you match it up. Kevin, Junior, Kevin, Tabiso, Junior, however you want to mix it up. You put that fight on a co-main event, on a top event, and you'll have more viewership and more interest in that fight than you would if you just announced in South Africa. Can I tell you why? You go into Twitter and you type in our top international guys' names, and there's a Twitter thread, not from South Africans, but of internationals.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention all that, I mean, how crazy would it be? Let's just say it's not in the US, it says it's not in your traditional sort of big countries. Imagine they did it in like a country rich like Saudi Arabia, like on an Anthony Joshua undercard, like something crazy like that. Like, I mean, it's not inconceivable that can happen, because we do need other fights beyond the main event. It's not just about the main event. There's other things. And the winner of that, I mean, the mileage they'd get out of that, I mean, that's traveling the world now. I mean, now after that, you become an international superstar. Not just you're a cruiserweight champion of the world, you're now a superstar.
But they will be paid like international stars when they feature on the co-main event. It's not just going to be a South African shake-off. Because that's unfortunately what gets paid. You get paid because it's a South African shake-off. You're not getting paid because of what's at stake or how great you are. But put it anywhere else in the world, and you're getting paid because it's great. You guys are the fucking best. Excuse my language, but it's fact. It's you guys are the best. This is where you situate yourselves at the moment. What happens if, let's say, the Super Series finishes now, and then you take the Super Series, okay? The Super Series comes to an end, whoever's won the Super Series. Now we go to the new Super Series. And they say, it's this one, Makabu, Larina, Tabiso, this one, this one, this one, this one. Those boys will all make more money fighting in that Super Series than they would fighting each other in South Africa.
Could you imagine they scrap the World Boxing Super Series right now, and with the current champions, they said, okay, you know, obviously, I don't know how much they arrange the payments and so forth, but obviously, as the rounds go up, you get paid more money, of course. Could you imagine having a cruiserweight one now, because obviously Kevin also alluded to the fact that he's got 3 or 4 more fights. That's perfect for a tournament like that sort of format. And I don't believe Junior is going to be fighting another 10 fights either. You know, that's just what I think. But a tournament like that, whoever finishes on top, I mean, that's legacy, man. To unify a cruiserweight division.
And could you imagine having 3? Should I say, okay, well, let's include Junior South African, but let's say 3 Africans. And there's only 8 people inside.
Could you
Never
imagine?
been done. We were just raving about 1 being inside. Could you imagine having 3? So this is what I'm saying. We need to remember what we are worth at the end of the day. And this is the problem. You know what you're worth, and you need the support at home, okay? And you need to create the opportunities overseas as well. When you're given that opportunity overseas, capture it, okay? But you need the support at home. You look at Junior's opportunity, he fought in his home country to fight for the world title. Why? Because we had support at home. And that's most important. And the same that needs to happen for Junior, for Kevin, and the same that needs to happen for Tabiso. But if we put the 2 together to fight each other, or whichever ways you match it up, we're not going to have the same outcome. So let's hold it off for a little bit, because the Super Series is almost over and they're going to want a new one, because there's all new players in the game now. Because we saw similar characters in the first one and the second one. Now we got a whole different mix-up. Now all of a sudden there's changes now. Now we got Gulamarian, the winner of Dotikos and Bradis. You've got the WBO title that can come into the mix. Glowacki can make a mix. Makabu's in there. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, hold on, there's a different structure to this tournament. It's not the same as the first one. There's different guys in here. So maybe, as much as we want this fight now, maybe it's the best thing that can happen that it only happens in a year from now.
No, I agree with that. What do you think for our media house? I mean, we got SABC, we got SuperSport. Now we spoke about television networks. You know, they still exist. I mean, they're currently operating. People get to watch the boxing on television. And then we're going to obviously gradually move towards online. In South Africa itself, now we talk about the boxers and the publicity for the boxers. Is there enough media houses to cover boxing
in South Africa?
Yeah, to make the box, to put the boxes on the level. Let's just say, because newspapers as well, like if you're not reading it online, I don't see how it's going to travel to the actual boxing spectator that's coming to the events. I'm talking about those sort of guys that are actively wanting to come to the events. We're talking online era at the moment. So are there enough media houses to build the boxes and make them as big as sort of the rugby players and the football players? Because they've solely relied on one platform, so to speak, which is television. Now, can they do the same with our boxing?
So, something that my father always said to me, it's easier to support a team sport than it is to support an individual. And that's why you have stadiums that you can fill out with one fighter, with one team. Okay? It's very difficult to start trying to fill out a stadium with one fighter. They really have to be something special, and it just has to be this world-renowned superstar in order to do it. But every weekend, Anfield is sold out, and Manchester United's grounds, Old Trafford is sold out, and that's just how it is, because they've got so many players, and people support different players within the team, but they support the same team. So in South Africa, the problem we have is we've got two platforms. Two television platforms. And I think this is where we let ourselves down. We've got SuperSport and we've got SABC. Okay? We need to structure ourselves in a way that we don't just have two, but maybe four. And we say, okay, well, we got two TV partners. Maybe in boxing, not in boxing, doesn't matter. We've got two TV networks, should we say. We need to bring in two platforms maybe, or a platform that we can utilize. Now, the problem is I think South Africans struggle to familiarize themselves with online viewership. We haven't been exposed for it for as long as the different markets. And we need to try and educate our population and force our population to try and use it. And they're familiar with Facebook as a platform. So why don't we use Facebook? They're familiar with Instagram. Why don't we use Instagram? We don't have to go and say, okay, well, we're making the site's dedicated to sports indirectly. No, we can make something within something. We can use social media as our platform to showcase boxing.
Yeah, as you said, those are already established. Facebook and Instagram, South Africans, I mean, we know in abundance. Twitter used to be. It's a little bit on the decline, but I still believe that Twitter is the best market for a boxer to sort of promote himself on, because a lot of the corporates are still operating on Twitter. So I think that it's a good idea to still invest in Twitter accounts. But what you're talking about is in terms of boxing events themselves, Facebook, Instagram. I have to agree with you, and that's when you ask someone to come to your site, you are going to have a limited viewership. And also, what I don't like about people like saying, "Come to my site," is here, put in your credit card details, and it's just like a whole schlep. It's like
it's a story,
The point now, we've missed the point of trying to promote boxing as opposed to trying to line our pockets.
So it's the same as this, for instance. Now we're on here. We've got people that come on, then they go, and then they come back, and they go, and that's what we need to do. We need to offer it. If they're not enjoying the fight, they can log off, and they can come back maybe when the next fight started.
And they didn't pay.
You know what I'm saying? And they didn't pay for it. So it didn't cost them anything. They said, okay, no problem. I'm going to go scroll through my Facebook. Okay, cool. Is that fight done? Oh, okay, the new fight's starting. Let's see. Jesus, a great fight. And they get stuck in and they watch the fight. That's what we need to do as South Africans, because the realism is we're different from the US and the UK. They have affordability. They can spend a little bit of money to watch content. Africans don't have that money. We unfortunately don't have that kind of money to go, I'm going to throw $100 at watching this and you're not 100% sure if you want to watch this. In the States, they'll click and say, oh, let's just watch this. Let's see what it's about. They'll pay the $10 and they're like, oh, no, okay, an hour. No, I'm not really enjoying this next thing. So they've got the affordability factor. Here in South Africa, we don't. We don't have, there's not enough money in our communities just to charge people for content. Give it to them for free.
I mean, how many times have you walked in, let's just say, into a market and someone and you don't really want to buy anything, you're just browsing, but someone offers you a free brownie, a little piece of a brownie to try, and you're like, okay, let me just try it. You know, it's free. You have a piece of it. You're like, actually, I'll take 4. Isn't that how it works?
100%. And let them have that 4 for free.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know why? They'll remember your brand. Okay, it's with them. They're enjoying it. And then when you come down the road in a year and a half, and you were, at that time, you're given it for free, and the oak's saying, oh, you know, he's 3 Rand, but this other guy's 2 Rand, but I've eaten this 3 Rand because he gave it to me for free. I know it's good stuff. I'm going to go for this 3 Rand.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you get people in. I mean, you can't just be, you know, like there was, what is it? Speaking about Coca-Cola, like they're selling their 12 cans in their first year. I mean, it's a process. You can't just come off the bat and say, pay 100 Rand for this event. You don't know what quality you're getting.
100%. You give it to people for free. You try it. You work with it. You utilize that as a space so that you can approach your sponsors, get money behind you, and that's how you do things going forward. If you get fortunate enough and your content is enjoyed, and maybe the CEO of SABC or the CEO of SuperSport is watching, he says, I want you to promote a show. I'm going to pay you to put this content up. And there you are. You've got an opportunity to do a show. And maybe you do that show and it's not streamed and seen for free. But then you still go back to your platform. Like I said, ESPN have free nights. ESPN have pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where opportunities come from. Being able to see something you want and not saying, I want money as I start. Sometimes you run a business and the first year you survive. And the second year you start to make a little bit of money. And in the third year, you're a millionaire. It's how it works. You don't just start something and it's a huge success overnight, because huge successes fall quickly.
But if you think about all the guys that are sort of okay, let's turn our attention to the USA right now. All the guys that are on pay-per-view right now were on that, like if they grew up through the ESPN system, were on the Friday night free fights. They were all there building. You saw them 17, 18 times before you started purchasing their pay-per-view. So you know exactly what you're going to get. I love this guy's fighting style, or I love the production that got put in. You guys do a fantastic job. I want to see more of this. I'll pay for that because I know you got quality. You've said it. You just said it earlier. I mean, that's just another example of just like how to picture and make it, put it into fruition.
And like I said, EFC gave us that feeling.
Mm.
That's what they did. They got good corporates behind them, and they gave us that feeling like we were watching an American event in South Africa, which was great. It was great. It gave you that feeling, that excitement. You enjoyed the content. You enjoyed the fighters. You didn't even know who the fighters are, but the promos were so powerful. You're like, I can't wait for them to hit each other. That's the realism of it, and that's what we need to do. We need to create excitement. Just like you sit down and we have a discussion about the upcoming fights, and I say to you, Hayden, today I'm feeling more vocal than other days, and I get a little bit more on the tap there, and the manager comes back and we add fuel to this fire and we make this event and it's power. We need that all around, but there's only so much I can say that can bring excitement to a fight. Sometimes a guy inside the gym dripping and that camera's watching him drip on that camera. Literally, you watch that sweat drip and you're like, this oak's worked extremely hard. I need to see how this oak's going to fight. Yeah. And that's what we need. We need media houses like yourself that come and say, okay, I'm doing an interview with you. I want to know what's your story, what's your feeling, how do you feel about the fight, how's preparations, blah, blah, blah. But we need media companies that are going to say, we're coming in to shoot your promo.
Yeah.
We're coming in to shoot your promo for your upcoming fight. And bam, there we go. SuperSports build up for the Super 4 now, for Brandon and Boyd and Rourke and Tristan, was great. It was a nice build up. We need another one. Why didn't they do another one now for the Boyd fight? We should have a final one now. It should be like, Brandon wants to tell Boyd, I'm going to rip your head off. Boyd should be like, I'm going to kick you in the fight. Do you know what I'm saying? It must be chaos. We must be like, what the hell's going on? I want to see these guys hit each other.
And it's not a dry cement fight. I mean, the guys have history. They've fought each other before. There's a lot to talk about with that fight. There's so much, you know, Boyd, obviously, is a bit more reserved. But Brandon, he wants to, like, I know he obviously wants revenge, but not just does he want revenge, but he wants to do something special. Obviously the way he got the victory over Rock Knapp, obviously sets him onto another path. But now and you obviously were very mad at the first decision that you got, and you both want something to prove. You guys have things to say, don't you?
No, definitely. And I think the fighters have something to say. And yes, okay, maybe it's not Boyd's character to get out and about and show his feeling. Maybe more Brandon's like that. It is what it is. Different fighters, different ways they come across. It's cool. You're going to have some guy that's going to be at a press conference, you're going to ask you a question, you're going to answer your question, you're going to keep quiet. And then you've got some guy that's going to give you everything in it. And then you got a bit of both. It's what makes it up. Now you're like, am I supporting the guy that's dead quiet, that's not saying anything? Am I supporting the guy, the Conor McGregor who's a loudmouth, or the guy that's backing himself, is self-confident? How do you want to support how do you as a viewer want to support either one of them? Because you don't know Brandon, you don't know Boyd. Does this guy that's a bit more quiet, more to himself, talking his interview, appeal to you? Or does Brandon saying, I want this fight more than ever, I'll do anything in this ring, I'll die in this ring, I'm going to give it all I've got? Is that the kind of guy that appeals to you? Is that the way you like to live your style, your lifestyle? Do you want to give everything you've got, or do you want to be more silent, go on your way, do what you got to do to make a success for yourself, and do whatever you need to do? And that's the kind of guy that suits you. Sure, great. So you pick your sides. Often or not, we see something and we're like, yes, I'm going with that oak. I've gone to boxing and I've been like, okay, I've sat with my team and I'm like, we don't know any of the fighters fighting. And I'm just like, for instance, East London, the early fights. And I'll look at a guy and I'll say, I'm going with him. And one of my fighters will go, no, I'm going with him. And we'll say, okay, so let's see who wins. Yeah. And we've got no promo videos. So let's throw in promo videos and let's make it exciting.
Joe, I just thought about it. Like, the time where we did that actually was one of the promo videos that I did actually for Andre's show on Real Steel, Imani Colombo against Nkululeko. I remember that build up and that whole like promo for it. When they played it on the big screen in the venue, like I'm pretty sure like the whole place was just erupting. They were just ready for that fight. Every single person was cheering for someone. There wasn't just someone sitting there quietly like a mouse. Everyone was getting up and actually going for it.
100%. But the press conference was heated. The interviews were heated. The build-up that you shot was heated. The weigh-in was heated. The whole atmosphere around that fight was heated. And that's what made the night wow. Because we all got into that fight and we were so much tension. And it was just like, okay, the opening bell, go, ding. And then we're like, okay, let's watch this. It's going to be power. And it turned out to be a great fight. So the hype around it gave us more attention to the fight, and the fight turned out great. Sometimes you can have great hype and a fight turns out terrible. Sometimes you can have no hype, but there's this great fight. And it's part of what happens in sport. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we can watch a rugby game and we're like, this is dead boring. There's not one try. There hasn't been one convert, nothing. And then you watch some games and it's like 50-20. I'll give you a mad example. And you're just like, that was chaos. Or you see a team like winning 7-3 in football. You're like, that was power. Both teams had a shit game because they actually were letting in goals. They were all over the show, but it turned out to be one of the best games you watch because there's so much action. Instead of 0-0, half-time. Jeez, tight game, eh? 0-0. Next half, tight. Okay, let's go to extra time. Jeez, no one scored yet. This is terrible, man. Do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes the tight ones are not the ones people want to see action. That's what people are attracted to. They want to see a fighter go down, get up. Corrales Castillo, go down, split the mouthpiece, go to the quarter, say, you got to do something now. Then he puts the mouthpiece in, bam, 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 he wins by knockout. Off the canvas twice, wins by knockout. That's what people love.
Yeah, obviously, you as a boxing trainer wouldn't love that to happen to your boxer. I mean, you want as clean a win as possible, but for a spectator, you're 100% correct. I mean, that's what they want.
And if you had to do a rematch, they would have come back for the spectators would have come back for the rematch and da-da-da-da-da. And it's going into that build-up. If you go for the second fight, you think to yourself, geez, we've got to make improvements. Did we pull it out the bag by luck? How do we do this? Do you know what I'm saying? Those things go into your head, but it adds to you as an individual to bring out the best in the fight in order to make things exciting.
I want to ask you a question because we mentioned now that interviews before fights and obviously, boxers, how do they grow? Brandon Taser before the Rock Knapp fights, and obviously we know there was a bit of you know, between you, Marco, a little bit
No
between.
bad blood, but just a
No,
bit
no, no,
of
good.
tension.
No, yeah, of course. That's natural in a build-up, and I think it was just maybe it was a little bit more heated than a normal South African build-up. I'll put it that way because we very, you know, usually like very like, respectful and stuff. But now we had a bit of banter going on. Do you think that Brandon Taser was better off having that for his popularity? I'm talking about, not for his mentality going into the fight. For his popularity now, I would think he's got more spectators from it.
So Rourke had a good following. There was a lot of hype around Rourke, and I think Brandon came and grabbed that. And Brandon's going to appeal to some. People are going to look at Brandon and say, no, he's arrogant, I ain't supporting Brandon. Some people are going to be like, I love him. He's power. He's ambitious. He's crazy. He shouted at Rourke, get up in the fight. Get up. I want you. Get up. Like, so, to some people, like I say, some certain things appeal. Some things don't appeal to certain people. So I definitely think it was a good part of him being like, oh, Brandon's just in the Super 4. He's going to get washed out in the semis, and then in the third, fourth place, he's going to get. Now everyone's like, a lot of people believe Brandon's going to win the tournament. So never write off anyone in a tournament. And you look at, I'll go back to, I think it was a Super 8 back in the day, Donnie Fenter versus, was it Tabiso in the final?
In the final, yeah. That was the fight.
No one thought Donnie was going to make it to the end. There was big hype around Flo Simba.
And Tabiso
all that kind of stuff. And Tabiso beat him twice. Donnie made it to the final. No one thought Donnie was going to be in the mix there. Everyone thought, we've seen the final already between Flo and Tabiso. Tabiso sticks him out one round. People were like, no ways. It was luck. Second fight happens again.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it's the sport. Sometimes you're going to get fans when you're inside the ring. Sometimes you're going to get fans on the front of the camera. And it's just is what it is.
Yeah. Look, I think it's interesting how we promote our boxers is that we got to keep making a story. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad mouthing, or it doesn't have to be like violence. It doesn't have to be personal. It just has to be a story. Simply put, one, you have to give a reason for a spectator to say, I want to watch this guy and I want that guy to win. And on the other side of the video is the other guy. I want to watch him. I can relate to that guy. I actually like his story. The way he speaks is much like what I want to hear. It's going into my ears correctly. It's motivational for me. It's more about the story than it is about sort of loudmouths, like what the Americans have sort of projected. If I'm not wrong.
I agree with you. And you've got to look at a fighter like Tyson Fury. They say I think he's trying to build his whole image around being a people's person, because he's been from the very bottom to the top, back down to the bottom, and now he's on top of the world. And you look at a guy, calls himself the Gypsy King. He's crazy. The things he says, he's mad at times, and you're just like, I love this guy. I can appeal to him because of his personality. But to a lot of people, they've been down the drug road and they've lost their lives and they've rebuilt. And some people fall for that aspect of him. I love him because of his crazy mouth. I think it's power. I'm just like that. Awesome. You know what I mean? I don't love his style in the ring. I'm not a fan of his style, but I enjoy his character. So I enjoy watching him fight.
Here's an interesting one, right? Because we got Tyson Fury, and then you got the Bronze Bomber, who's also quite eccentric. I mean, he's also like loud and abrasive. Who are you supporting going into that fight?
To be honest, I was supporting Wilder, and I enjoyed both of their characters. I just like the fact that to everyone, Wilder's always losing, and he's always just got a way of pulling it out. And I like that. Not even just the power aspect. He's just got a way of getting it. Whether it catches you with a left hook, a right hand, he can hurt you at any given time. And we've seen that time and time again. You look at Ortiz. I was like, man, the Soke hasn't won a round. He's just, and then all of a sudden, boom, good night. Thanks for coming. It's like he always gives that tendency of hope to someone. Like it's not over. It's not over till that final ball's over. And it's the same for any fighter. He might be in that fight for 12 rounds. He's not winning a round. He's in the fight, but he's not in the fight. And in round 12, boom, he pulls it out. The same as Fury. Wilder was losing against Fury, in my opinion. Those knockdowns justified his draw. And I said it before I went into this fight. Either Wilder's going to knock him out or we're going to go to points. Little did I think Fury would come out and do what he did. And I think he surprised a lot of people. But I think you've seen boxing enough to know that when that opening bell went, something was not right with Wilder. To
There's a
me,
couple.
I could see from the opening bell there was something wrong.
Obviously, you would have seen it now. We've all seen that Joshua and Fury have now signed to fight in the future. But
2021, yeah.
there's so many little things that can deny that fight. I mean, there's Usyk. There's another fight against Deontay Wilder. There's Dillian White. I mean, you're looking at those names, and there's so many things. Do you think that they should have made a contract like that public?
No, because when you're at that kind of level, you don't need to know what I'm earning and vice versa, and how I earn my money and where my money goes and to who my money goes. Because there's a lot of, the last week and a bit, there's been some interesting things that have been said about Fury and his management, and it's gotten a little bit ugly on social media as to a certain particular person coming out and concluding the deal and how valuable he was in the deal. I'm sure you've seen it. So I'm not meant
who's more valuable between Joshua and Fury?
No, so the person that put the whole deal together with Eddie Hearn that represented Tyson Fury,
right?
And there was a whole
MTK.
stigma, MTK, but the person that was involved and their background, and now Fury's gone and said, no, he's not involved with me. Then there's a story about how Bob Arum is the one leading the negotiations on behalf of Fury because of Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, and maybe there's a bit of friction, or we don't know the whole story. So people, do they need to know the legalities of the deal? Do they need to know if on Monday Fury needs to go for a drug test, and on a Tuesday Joshua has to go for a drug? And people don't need to know that. What they need to know is that the fight's going to happen. The splits are 50-50. It could be one of the richest fights ever in the history of boxing. Two of the greatest fighters in the world, create hype around it, blah, 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 and people need to be excited. People don't need to be overwhelmed with all the nitty-gritties of everything.
Okay, I'm going to finish with one question, and then we're going to open it up in case we lose another hour, because, it's going quickly like this.
Quickly.
I'm not going to ask who do you think's going to win. I'm going to ask who you're going to support in that fight, if it happens.
Which fight? Joshua Fury. Okay, so I look at it like this.
Yeah.
Depends what Joshua comes on the night. If you got Joshua that fought Ruiz in number 2, Fury's going to make him look dumb.
Because why do you say that?
Because I think if he tries to outbox Fury will outbox him. He's got no chance of standing there and being able to play a boxing chess match with Fury. I think Fury is too superior in skill set. Okay, I think a brave Anthony Joshua needs to arrive on the night, and he needs to make Fury feel uncomfortable.
Does he need to pick up the weights again, Joshua? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think a bit of this, a bit of that. I think a little bit of weight there, sustain the speed. Fury's very quick. His head movement's sharp. If you're going to be slow on the night, he's going to make you miss all night. And if you're too quick, maybe you're not going to have the power to hurt him. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I think he'll be a good balance. But for me, Joshua needs to come out and make sure that he stamps his authority that night. He needs to make sure Fury respects him like Fury respects Wilder. And then he's got to fight. If he doesn't do that, it's a Fury all night.
Okay, but who are you going to support? That was the question.
You asked me who am I going to support. I'm going to support boxing because it's a great fight. But I'll be honest with you. I like both fighters, and when I get closer to the time, I'll make my decision. At the moment, I think I'm leaning a touch towards no one.
Wow.
I'm gonna wait for the build up.
I was really expecting an answer there.
I think it's difficult because I enjoy both characters. I enjoy the fact that Joshua showed a lot of maturity in his last fight in terms of he had got knocked out and he had come back and he outboxed Ruiz cleverly and he stuck to a game plan. The only thing I would have done is I would have been like, boss, you're so comfortable after 10 rounds. Open up a little bit on this fat boy because maybe we can knock him out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it was that kind of situation. He's just like, I got him behind the jab, I'm comfortable, bang, bang, dropping a right hand every now and again, and a box, and a box, and a box. And I'm just like, boss, I've watched you for 8, 9 rounds. You earning $20 or $30 million in this fight. My man, please, can you just go, even if you just put him down and then go back to boxing? Because you got the power to, you showed it in the first fight.
Yeah.
So
No,
I can understand. I didn't want to take the risk, but still, you're getting paid $20 million. Keep the fans on their toes.
All right, I'm just going to say, unbiased, I would be supporting
Fury.
Anthony Joshua, my favorite boxer in the heavyweight division. But,
Really?
Yeah, no, 100%. My favorite boxer in the heavyweight division is Anthony Joshua. There you go. Just like that.
Okay.
All right.
So you get my aspect on why I said it the way I said it. Do you feel the same in the way I see how he needs to fight the fight?
I feel exactly the same. And that's why I'm hoping that in the times that are coming, Anthony Joshua can make those adjustments in those fights beforehand. I don't know if Fury, Fury is... If the downfall of Fury could be Fury. That's what I'm thinking. But I don't know up until it's a long way to go until we actually see, and there's fights in between that still have to be established. So I can't say who's going to win, but I would be supporting Anthony Joshua 100%.
100%. Okay, so let's open up to the viewers, I think, for the questions.
Okay,
if they have any.
So we'll go legit Mark, legit Soldier Boy. Fury will be in Joshua's head before round 1. Do you think that, Damien?
Sorry, repeat it there. I was trying to find it.
Do you think Fury would be in Joshua's head before round 1? In the build-up?
No. I think Joshua's been at a high enough level, and I think he's able to compose himself extremely well, and I don't think those kind of things bother him too much because he's been in the spotlight for so many years already. Americans tend to show a temper, so do UK fighters, but I think for me, Joshua's always carried himself as a gentleman. He's always spoken openly to people. I don't think it's going to be that kind of case. I think the banter will come more from Fury than it will from Joshua. I think Joshua will try and handle the whole setup like more like a professional and not try and get inside anyone's head. He'll just sit back and smile and do his face off and talk openly. And yeah, I think that's how he'll take it.
I think there was a question earlier. I don't know who asked the question, but I saw it. It said, is Anthony Joshua chinny? But, my personal opinion is it's the heavyweight division. I don't know a single heavyweight.
Everyone's chinny in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
you look at all of them. Joshua's been down. Fury's been down. Wilder's been down. White's been down. Chizora's been down. No, you can name them all. Povetkin's been... Yeah, it's heavyweight division. That's why people pay to see it, because they know at any time, boom, someone's gone. So for me, is Joshua chinny? Yes and no.
I don't think so.
I think there is. I think he doesn't take the best of shots. Do I think Fury's got enough power to hurt Joshua? I don't think so. You look at a guy like Deontay Wilder who was sitting on those ropes and those right hands were landing clean and left hooks at the end of the fight. And there was the man's folding. And guys, when they get hit with such clean punches in the heavyweight division, they normally go down properly. Wilder took it. So I don't know if Fury's got the power to disturb Joshua. He may be able to tiz him a bit, but I think Joshua's got maybe a little bit of power to tiz Fury as well.
Jock asked a question, but I think I'll answer it for you, Damon, because I know you feel very passionate about it. Would Makabu and Lorena be a 50-50 split? Absolutely yes. I think they both should be 50-50 considering their statuses. I know that you said that earlier.
I'm saying no.
But you said it earlier in the piece.
No, I said to them they deserve good money. I didn't say they deserve 50-50 each.
Okay, wait. Don't go too much in depth because we've got a lot of questions coming through. What's the split? What should the split be then?
70-30 to Makabu because he's WBC world champion.
Ooh, it gets spicy. Sure, 70-30.
I would say maybe a 60-40 if he owned any other organizational title. But because it's the IBO, I give it 30%.
So you're saying if he had WBA, IBF, okay.
And then I give it 60-40 to Makabu still. Because we all know the green one's the gold, huh?
Okay, that just says your stance on the WBC is your number one, huh?
No, it's not my number one, but if you talk to any fighter, they want that green belt, eh?
question. Okay, I know 100%. Everyone sort of dreams of the WBC when they're young. But Chris Van Heerden, do you see him having a chance against the division's best? That's the question that came through.
I think Chris is a better fighter now than he was when he fought Spence. I think he took a lot away from that fight. I think he learned a lot more in the gym, and I think he's been able to put it together better now. Do I think he'll get the opportunity? It's hard to say. It's not nice to see Chris not featuring on the top ranks. These night fights that they're doing at the moment, these lockdown fights. It would be nice to see him active in it. Will he have a chance at the elite? Unfortunately, I don't see Chris beating Terence Crawford. We know the outcome of the Spence fight. Who else is in that division that could be a possible fight for him?
Oh, Sean Porter. Jeez, that's a good fight.
Sean Porter's a hell of a fighter.
For myself personally, I did an interview with him the other day. Chris Algieri versus Chris Van Heerden could be a good fight.
That is a good fight, and I think it's a fight people would like to see. I think it'll be a nice fight. I think they complement each other. But against those Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, those guys have been around at that level for a while. They've had some big fights. I think Chris could mix with Thurman. It'll be a very, very tough fight for Chris. Could he win it? I don't know. It's difficult to say. Like we haven't seen Chris against that kind of level opposition where we've seen like Spence. So it's hard to say. Sean Porter, maybe he could give Sean Porter a run for his money. But then again, Sean Porter gave us a hell of a fight against Spence.
Sean Porter doesn't give anyone a better fight.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a very, very tough fight to. He's in a very, very difficult division, to be honest, and I think that's why, unfortunately, he hasn't had the opportunities either, because there's some serious fights that are out there, and it's for a certain few.
We forgot about Danny Garcia. I see the comments saying Danny Garcia. I think he's a little bit smaller though, but he's got that left hook, hasn't he?
Yes, that left hook can put a lot of people to bed. Eh?
Yes, Danny Garcia is he's small, but he's a dangerous guy.
100%. So let's see, what have we got here? Mixed with Garcia, Chris was Danny Garcia, yeah. Okay, Porter Garcia, Thurman. Okay, where are we? Let's talk about Pila Monshani and Lunga Stamela.
That's a good fight.
It is a good fight. I will edge towards Pila.
Because of inactivity.
Who? For Lunga? Yeah, I think the experience of Pila, I think, will be the advantage. And Pila's also got some sort of unpredictability about him.
Not coming off the best performance, though, right?
He was in the fight, then he dipped out, then he was in the fight, and then he was not in the fight. So it's up to him on how he wants to come on the night. Stamela is a good fighter. I think it could be a fight that's a little bit too soon in his career. I think he needs to get active, maybe another 2-3 fights before they throw him in that Eastern Cape environment, because it's a different world. Who's the best heavyweights in South Africa? Philip, no, I'm kidding. The best heavyweights in South Africa. That's hard to say. I can't give you an honest answer there, because I think our heavyweights just lack a lot of elements to even consider the word best in their terms. So unfortunately, our heavyweight division in South Africa is very, very poor. If you had to compare, we'll see who's the best between Tian Flick and Joshua Pistorius.
Oh, that's the one most promising upcoming fighter in South Africa as well.
Most promising?
Fighter in South Africa, upcoming fighter.
I think that kid's name's Nonshinga.
Oh, you think Siva is the number one? I think so too.
Yeah, I think that kid's really, really special. I think he's got a bright future, and he just needs to keep his head about himself, train hard, continue to learn at the sport, and I think there could be a very bright future for that boy.
And I also think maybe Jabulani McKenzie as well needs to be added to that conversation.
Definitely, McKenzie something to watch, and like I mentioned it on a group earlier, I'd love to see Mbenge versus McKenzie.
That's a firework fight, isn't it?
100%. I think it's a great, great fight. And I see people like Chris versus Tools. I think that's a great local matchup. Power fights. You could do, I don't know, maybe we could do a Super 4. You got Chris, Tools, McKenzie, and throw in someone else.
Chris, Tools. Sure. Jeez, imagine if Morris Matamba.
Yeah, you bring Matamba back in. So you say, okay, Matamba versus Chris. You go Tools versus McKenzie, and then you got your final. Great little Super 4 matchup there. What's the near-term future for Imani, all in SA in his division, is too scared to fight him? Okay, so Jacques, Emmanuel's taken care of everyone in South Africa. And I think Taysa's the next one to take care of everyone in South Africa. And Emmanuel's future will be overseas. We were close to closing up something before the lockdown, and it disturbed us. And I think his next appearance will be abroad. And if that's not the case, he'll definitely make a feature on his promoters bill. But I definitely think his next fight will be abroad. And he's ready to shake up the world. I think he's ready to make a name for himself. He's ready for deeper waters.
Emmanuel, not Emmanuel, because you just spoke about Colombo. What about, I see Paul Kamanga's name's been mentioned. What about a Jabulani McKenzie Paul Kamanga fight? I mean, that's huge, isn't it?
So I thought of that fight and actually spoke to Andre about that fight. And I said, that's a fight I'd really, really like to see, because the only thing is, I think they did try and make the fight. I'm not too sure. I think there was a little bit of a problem in terms of licensing. I'm not sure if Kamanga carries a license in South Africa or where he's licensed, because he used to be based in the UK. So I think there was a little bit of an issue there. But definitely a fight I'd like to see. Obviously a big test for McKenzie.
Yeah, big time. I think that's the step. Well, I mean, McKenzie has been pushed a bit, so it's not like you have to keep. I don't know when's. We got 2 minutes left, by the way, for our second hour spot.
Finish up. Malajika. For me, Malajika has got a bright future. Needs time. Needs to be groomed. There shouldn't be a rush. Sultan fight's a very dangerous fight for him. He could possibly pull it out just because of his youth and his toughness. He wants to do it because he's a driven fighter, but it's a very, very tough fight. I think if he's built correctly, it could be something. Baby G, we know that's a future star in the making. It's only about timing. Sakibo as well. Sakibo, I would love to see Dumazweni and Sakibo.
Ooh, that would be a hell of a local fight, eh? Sure. But 2 different promoters, though. That's the problem.
It's okay. That doesn't matter. Why can't we say, come to terms with so much, you come to terms with so much, let's fill up Orient.
But let's not forget the bad blood with Sakibo, though, in that particular fight. You know?
So, with Sakibo and Dumazweni, there's no bad blood.
No, between the promoters. I mean, Rumble had acquired him from the other promoter, so it's just like, it's a bit dangerous, eh?
It adds spice, it adds all that juice. That's what you want. You want to have a promo video. These promoters have got history. They're going against each other. You've got Dumazweni, you've got Sakibo. They meet each other to see who's the best. Because if you look at it on record, go look on paper, Dumazweni still rated higher than Sakibo, and he suffered a loss in his last fight. So it just shows the credibility of him in terms of that he's rated higher than Sakibo.